Wowee! Talking about the day to get back to the office, right? The day for me to come back to the studio, we get hit with this one. Whoa! You know what? I was just telling you guys the other day, it was time. It was high time to throw out that $500 million fine that one judge decided along with Letitia that they could get Trump for, and sure enough, it's happening. Oh my gosh, we got a lot to discuss, and it's not over yet, by the way, because they haven't decided on the fraud charges, and he's appealing those still, but I mean, he's got to be at least happy about this. I thought it would come, but nonetheless, talking about having that thing off your back, $500 million, that was insane, actually totally, utterly insane. And by the way, the court decided a violation of his 8th Amendment rights. Donald Trump seeing a victory here. Letitia James seeing her little thing for $500 million getting thrown out of the appellate court in the state of New York, as we predicted it would, right here on the Trish Regan Show. Welcome back. Good to have you guys here. We're going to get into all of that. Plus, another woke CEO goes bye-bye. Okay, this is the Target guy. Brian Cornell, I mean, their sales have just been plummeting, and they went all in with the pride stuff and the tuck-it swimsuits and you name it, and guess what? He's out of a gig. And investors are happy about it. Meanwhile, you got the Cracker Barrel CEO kind of getting out over her skis with her wokeness, and she's reinventing the stores, and well, investors don't really like that. We'll talk about it. Go woke, go broke. You know the drill. Also, Gavin Newsom under fire. I mean, he just can't stop mimicking Donald Trump. It's really weird. It's as though somebody decided to take all his tweets and throw it into ChatGPT and have it spit out, how would Donald Trump say this? And however Donald Trump would say it is suddenly how Gavin Newsom would say it. Woo! Okay, Letitia, baby, it is over. And guess what? They're still coming for you on that mortgage fraud stuff. Ed Martin taking a photo outside the brownstone today, tweeting it with a big, giant smile. He's the DOJ investigator looking into just exactly what went down with some of those properties. Anyway, we're talking about a $500 million lien, basically, on Donald Trump that she had gotten in there, along with the judge, Arthur Engoron, or however the heck you say the guy's name, whatever you want to call him. I'll tell you, he's no good. He's no good, because this was so perverse what they did. And guess what else? It was a total violation of the president's 8th Amendment rights. Yeah, there's this little thing called the 8th Amendment, because, when we were trying to free ourselves from Great Britain back in the day, we didn't like what the royals would do when they would decide to dictate everything, and they could take somebody down just because they didn't like your opinions, and they could make life really difficult vis-a-vis the fines, etc. That's what Letitia James was doing, for goodness sakes. That $500 million penalty against the former, now President of the United States is gone, and she's kind of suffering a big setback. I mean, this is fantastic for a woman who was just nonstop, right, out for blood, and then some, who made it her mission every day to come into work and to campaign on getting Donald Trump. This is what you call justice.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, yes. We know he's crazy. Yes. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. Yes. We know he's out of control. Yes. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered, and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male,
that one got me. Okay.
And too stale.
I just gotta say, this is a great moment in time. And I wanted to, just jog your memory so that you know what he was up against. A political animal who was quite willing to take everything he owned. In fact, she told ABC News, remember them? Oh, they had to pay a fine to the tune of, $16 million to the president. They're now under investigation for FCC violations. And Bob Iger and the president of ABC News and the rest of them, all in all kinds of trouble. But anyway, they were kind of taking Letitia's side, so it seemed. I mean, anybody, in the media was doing this. They were all on her side, despite the fact that, she was so over her skis in terms of the actual law. She wanted to actually take Trump Tower. Let me remind you,
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Okay. Well, you can't actually do that. Again, Letitia, because there is this thing called the Eighth Amendment, which if you paid attention in law school instead of politicking all the time, maybe you'd actually know about. Yeah, the Eighth Amendment that doesn't allow you to just improperly go after people for these reasons. This is what it came down to. Total violation of the Eighth Amendment. You had a 5-member panel. This is a picture coming to us courtesy of Fox, all upholding findings that Trump and his company were liable, affirming that James acted within her authority, and that's vis-a-vis them saying, well, he inflated the square footage, et cetera. We're going to get to that in a second because the fraud part, that still stands, and he's appealing that. And he's also, by the way, his DOJ is going after Letitia James for a violation of his civil rights, as well, by the way, her having committed some kind of fraud herself, because it seems that she did something, allegedly, that may have been far worse than anything she's trying to indicate he may have done. Okay, because he inflated the square footage on something, which again, like, you can't do, but would it ever, for goodness sakes, warrant the taking away of his property, not allowing him to continue accumulating? I mean, $500 million, guys, that's what you came up with? Come on. So that gets at Eighth Amendment rights, right? Because you can't have excessive fines. For example, you cannot have the government come in and disproportionately say, okay, we're going to fine you, we're going to fine you, we're going to fine you with these huge penalties that have no relation to what actually may or may not have been done. For example, you can't have cruel and unusual punishments. I mean, this was $500 million. I mean, and it would have been even bigger by the time all the interest had accumulated. This was massive, and it was unacceptable, and the judges knew it at the time. I couldn't believe it took so long. That's the one thing that shocked me. I mean, they knew from the very beginning. And by the way, the media knew. The media knows. And Letitia does not have a lot of friends right now. I mean, the media had already started to turn on her. They said this was of her own making because everybody was like, what the heck is this case? And you're bragging about this when it actually is just such a violation of people's rights, for goodness sakes, lady, which is what they tried to tell her. I mean, hey, Tishy, honey, you have no victim in this case. Remember when we listened to the arguments? This is Judith Vale speaking on behalf of Letitia James, because again, when you go to the appellate court, you need smarter people arguing these cases, not Letitia James, who's just out for political blood. Watch.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses?
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved a consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Boom! Okay, that's when we all knew. And then we've been sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Now, normally these things take like 30 days. So it should have happened really quickly. And yet it took over 300 days. So what's that about? Apparently, there was some debate about whether or not they, were going to stick with the fraud charges, et cetera. But, they made the decision. They concluded that whatever he may or may not have done on that front, it didn't warrant the kind of fraud fine that the judge and Letitia came up with. That was just bonkers, and that was a violation of the Eighth Amendment. But again, they never had a case, ever. And that was super evident from the very beginning.
You're pointing to Ernst & Young, you're pointing to First American. Ernst & Young, you're dealing with the collapse of Lehman Brothers. First American, you're dealing with an action brought against an appraiser who overvalued properties at the behest of a lender perpetrating a scheme to induce unsophisticated consumers into taking out home loans that they could not afford. It hardly seems that justifies bringing an action to protect Deutsche Bank against President Trump, which is what you have here. I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money, and that was the point of my initial question. Every case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, the statute doesn't require that whatsoever for liability. And the statute is written broadly because the legislature wants the Attorney General to go in and stop fraud and illegality.
Counsel, I think you hear underneath all these
Counsel, I think you're over your skis. Bottom line here, we do have Eighth Amendment rights. Now, in terms of the fraud aspect, one of the challenging parts about all this, right? You can't say, my apartment is 3,000 square feet when it's really 1,000 square feet, right? And so that's part of the issue that's come up. Again, does the punishment fit the crime? Absolutely not, which is why you get back to the Eighth Amendment and the violation there. So I'm not saying for any reason that somebody should inflate or exaggerate or any of that. However, you can't justify what she did. I mean, that is just it's kind of a slap on the wrist because there weren't any victims. Like, that's what the judges kept saying. There aren't any victims in this case. And so, not that it makes it right, but typically you kind of got to have a victim, especially if it's going to be a case of that magnitude. And if you're talking about those kinds of fines and putting people through that kind of torment, which, frankly, he and his family were put through HELL and back, right? Because of Letitia James and too male, too pale, too stale and the whole bit, right? This suddenly became just go get Trump instead of rooted in anything really legal or scholarly. So this has been a wild case from the get-go. I'm also struck by the fact that you had a Letitia James, Attorney General of the state of New York, trying to intervene and say, well, I think Mar-a-Lago is worth this. He thinks it's worth that. So he's inflating it. But isn't it up to Deutsche Bank, the actual bank that makes the financial decision to lend him the money, what they think it's worth? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are responsible, right? And as long as you're going to go after him on that front, then maybe you should be going after Letitia. Maybe you should be going after Deutsche Bank too, because Deutsche Bank was the one who said, hey, you know what, we'll take this. We'll take this all day long. They even said they would take it again because it was a great deal and everybody made money. God forbid the Democrats ever let you make money. Again, I'm not condoning, the inflating property values or anything like that, but I'm also going to tell you, if Letitia James is telling you Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, you got bigger problems, all right? Much, much bigger problems. And that's the state meddling in private enterprise, which all of those judges were like, whoa, this is not good. So what happens now? Where does it go next? Listen, she's still in a lot of trouble, and we'll talk about that. But now, because they're upholding this fraud case, he's appealing that one. So he's got a victory on the financial front. That is some validation, some legal validation as well, right? Because she was violating his Eighth Amendment. So that's a big, big deal. And the New York Times even had to admit that. I love this, reading, quote, a New York appeals court on Thursday threw out a $500 million judgment against President Trump, eliminating the enormous financial penalty. And then they had to write, while declining to overturn the fraud case against him. So again, that's what's going to go on to another appellate court there. And what I think is kind of the sweet justice in all this is that this was her career-defining victory, right? She was like, I got him for $500 million. It's like a threat to anyone who ever wants to run for president and you don't happen to be on, that side's team. Who the heck wants to be in politics if that's what you're up against? I mean, these people, these DAs, these AGs, they tend to be very political, and it's a very, very gross distortion of what we should be. But it's satisfying, right? When the law comes back and the law makes the right decision. In the case of this one, you have an 8th Amendment backing you up. You can't have cruel and unusual punishments. You can't have excessive fines. This was totally an excessive fine. It was totally a cruel and unusual punishment because it just didn't merit anything like this. You had no victims, as the judge said, not to mention, it was Deutsche Bank's decision to take this on. So, is the state going to get in the way of that? I don't think so. That's not the kind of country we live in. Granted, again, I'm not suggesting for 2 seconds that you can lie on anything or inflate on anything, but I would say that the onus is also on Deutsche Bank or whatever bank is doing the lending to make sure that they're okay with something, because if push comes to shove, if he didn't pay the bill, Deutsche Bank would have been in there saying, hey, we need this, that, and the other. We want to make sure that we can get something out of Mar-a-Lago. So a huge, huge victory for Trump and his family today. And certainly it's good to have this one off his shoulders. What happens next? He takes this to the appellate court. Again, it's going to go up the food chain because he does not want to go down as having been convicted of fraud. He does get some support here in that how viciously political she is, to the point where, and also the judge. I mean, what is the judge thinking? I'd like to see his what get sued as well, because for someone like Arthur Endogoran, I never say it right, and you know what? I don't even care. Whatever, E-N-D-O-G. Arthur, let's just call him Judge Arthur. What a vindictive, terrible person he is to completely ignore the Constitution. What kind of judges do we have? And so, yes, I'm happy that at the appellate court there's some relief. It should have happened sooner. There was a lot of speculation that Kathy Hochul had her hand in there. There was speculation about one judge in particular that was put there by Kathy Hochul, and the White House had indicated that Kathy was sort of holding this over his head. That was all rumored because Kathy's saying, no, I would never do that, etc. But you had to wonder, why was it taking so long? If it normally takes 30 days, why did this take more than 300? At least we have some resolution, however, now. And I'll tell you, Letitia James is not out of trouble. Letitia James could very well be looking at 30 years in the slammer for mortgage fraud herself, like the real kind of mortgage fraud, okay? The kind of mortgage fraud that actually puts taxpayers at risk because she's involving taxpayer funds. And she's also looking at a DOJ investigation out of New York regarding her alleged violation of Donald Trump's civil rights. Ed Martin is the guy that was appointed by Pam Bondi. Okay, so Ed Martin is doing the investigation, and he's poking around all kinds of places, including her backyard. I mean, not to be intimidated or anything, right? I don't know, but when the feds are showing up at your doorstep, gosh, Letitia, wasn't that what you were trying to do at Trump Tower, when you wanted to have to confiscate all of his assets? Weren't you doing that actually at his golf course too? Well, now Ed Martin's giving you a little bit of payback. This is the DOJ investigator looking into one Letitia James after Bill Pulte over at the federal housing thing said, you know what? I think that this woman might have committed mortgage fraud, because why did she say on her documentation when she applied for a mortgage in Virginia that this was her primary residence? It's a fair question, and Ed is trying to find out. I want to show you this video that was taken by somebody on the street as he moseyed up. He's looking like Columbo there in the trench coat with a colleague to take a good hard look at the stoop and see how many floors are actually in that brownstone, because apparently she reported 4, but it's really 5, and that has something to do with the kind of rate you get on the mortgage. Watch.
I'm just sure there's like the Pratt building. Is there
want me to tell you how to access my...
No, I'm just asking. I'm interested, because usually houses like this.
Tell me why you're here.
We're interested in the houses.
You're not interested in the houses. We know who lives here.
Is this like Second Empire?
It's just a track house. That's what all of these things are.
I know, but when was it built, do you think?
They're built before 1899.
Oh, so, okay.
Why are you being so disingenuous about what you're here for? You're not here about the houses. You're here because of who lives here. It's my neighborhood. It's my block. I have a right to know what you guys look like your official capacity.
I'm just happy to be on a block looking at a house.
It's not true. Why won't you be
No, he is happy.
Well, why won't you be honest with me about what you're doing? You are acting suspicious on my blog in front of my neighbor's
I'm just looking.
and you're not telling me what you're doing. That's not true.
Interesting houses. It's an important house. Thank you. Have a good
It's
day.
hard to hear.
just like every other tract house on this block that was built by developers.
Right, they're beautiful. Beautiful neighborhood.
Thank you.
I mean, do you guys call this a stoop?
What do you think?
I don't know. Is this a stoop? We didn't have stoops where I was growing up. Is this a stoop?
I want to know what you're doing.
Just checking it out.
You're not.
Okay, so this lady's all upset. You know, why are you on my block? I know what you're doing here. This is Letitia's home, etc. How dare you? And it's like, well, you know, I guess all's fair in love and war. A little bit of payback going on. I would say, though, that, you know, Pulte's onto something. Here he is, I guess it might have been a couple of months ago, on with my friend Maria Bartiromo, my former colleague from both CNBC and Fox Business. And he had a few things to say about Letitia's handling of her mortgage. Watch.
Recommended that the DOJ investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James over alleged mortgage fraud. The AG, Letitia James, has responded. We don't have the video, but here's the quote. "This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia resident. And prior to that, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement of their investigation." Bill, do you know why she said she was a resident of Virginia on the power of attorney, if in fact she wasn't?
Well, I know that we are mortgage experts, and we only refer things that we think are mortgage fraud, and we stand 100% behind the letter. I'll let the letter speak for itself. I do know, and I have seen some reports from that subject, from that subject's criminal defense lawyer, saying certain things. I'll leave it to the DOJ to correct various things. But again, when we see mortgage fraud, we are going to report it. When we see mortgage fraud, we are going to prosecute it within the confines of our duties. And we are not going to be intimidated by a subject's criminal defense lawyer. We are not going to be intimidated by a politician, or just because you have an Esquire behind your name. We are not going to be intimidated by people. If we see mortgage fraud, we're going to do something about it. And I think that you're going to see us be taking this on in a big way. Mortgage fraud is a big problem. These companies are safe and sound, but where we see it, we are going to do something about it. And that subject's case is no different.
Well, what are the ramifications of this now that you've referred this for criminality to the DOJ?
Well, I would refer that to the DOJ. Again, as I say, we spend our days, we are mortgage experts. We are not politicians. I view this as an academic job. Obviously, the president can fire me at any time. So I guess in that way. But look, I look at this as an independent agency. We found the mortgage fraud, whether it be that particular subject or other subjects, and we work actively with the DOJ and different law enforcement.
You know what I think is great about this is he won't even say her name, right? That particular subject that none of us really even like to speak of, right? Well, that particular subject is definitely in a whole lot of trouble. Let me show you what Ed Martin put out today. This is great. Again, reminding you that this is the DOJ investigator that has been put in charge of the whole thing. So he's kind of trolling her, right? Like, he's really trolling her. And people might be like, well, why is he doing that? But you know what? Let's not forget what Letitia did, okay, guys? Like, and this is the world, sadly, I guess, in which we live. But he put this picture out. Can you see it? Woo! Good morning, America. How are you? Now, you know what's funny? This came right before the news. So I think he had kind of a heads up. I think he knew that this was coming and that they were about to dismiss the $500 million penalty. And so then he put this one out. Thomas Brennan, thank you for your generosity. Great to have everybody here. I'm looking at all your comments live. And James Vickery, thank you so much. It is a wonderful day, right? You know, listen, I flew all the way home from Greece yesterday, okay? I was in the air for 11 hours. I got home at like 1:30 in the morning. And of course, I go through the news before I go to bed every night. What are we going to lead with? And I had a bunch of stories I wanted to talk to you guys about. And even this morning, I got up extra early, because I'm still on, some other time schedule. And guess what? This thing hit. And I called David, who works on my team, and he didn't even know about it yet. No, I mean, like this, we had it fresh, hot off the presses. unfortunately, there's some production that goes into doing this, so I couldn't join you right away. It took me like an hour and a half or so, but here I am. And wow, so James, thank you for that. And peace of my mind, good to see you back here. And I really, Thomas, thank you as well. Thomas Bryant, he said it's amazing that New Yorkers aren't complaining about the $10 million in tax money. Of course, but you know what, Thomas? They are. They're just not being heard. I have showed you guys some polls that suggest Letitia actually isn't going to get elected again. I realize they like her in New York City. New York City is its own special kind of place. I know, I lived there way too long. I thank the Lord every day that I no longer have to live in New York City, but in New York City, she has a base of support. You go outside in New York City and no one likes her. You go up to, say, the Buffalo area where my husband's from, you see a lot of Trump signs, and I'll tell you one thing, no one likes her. No one likes her, and her polls are actually showing a lot of weakness. And I don't think people are going to like the idea that she's taking taxpayer dollars to pay the likes of Abby Lowell, the fancy schmancy Hunter Biden attorney. Yeah, he's the guy that represented Hunter on the laptop. So he's charging a pretty penny, and she's got $10 million for it. Well, the GOP in New York is like, no way. And I'll tell you, the Democrats are struggling. New study out that the New York Times even reported on yesterday showing that nobody's actually registering to vote as a Democrat anymore. I mean, they got a 28% approval rating. Even CNN admits their brand is in the garbage, and nobody's registering to be a Republican. Forgive me, a Democrat. They're all registering, young people, to be Republicans. So, the Dems have a problem, and I think Letitia has a problem. I think people are going to be furious that she is using their hard-earned money to fight this thing because she's the political animal that she is, and she just wants to keep on fighting to try and raise her profile. But she's going to raise her profile right out of her job as AG. Meanwhile, not to mention, she is looking at Ed Martin's penalties there with possible mortgage fraud. I mean, that's really, really pretty bad. And what's being alleged is really, really pretty serious. But she's not the only one. I mean, look at all the people that are getting hit with the mortgage fraud thing. It's like, wowsy, guys. I mean, Adam Schiff, Mr. Schiff Show, he's back in action. I mean, he's in a ton of trouble right now because it looks like he had a home in Maryland that he declared as his primary residence while he was the representative to California. So now how does that make sense? It doesn't. There's no way that one makes sense. So, the Schiff is sort of hitting the fan, as we like to say. This is something that came out as well vis-a-vis Adam Schiff. I'm looking at sort of just some FBI documents suggesting that he really did have quite a big role in the whole Russia thing, as we already knew, right? And so that's coming to light. James Marino, thank you for the generosity. News reports allege DNC and Dems have very little money in the bank. Yeah, and I mean, why? Why would you contribute to them? I mean, nobody likes the Dems right now, and they feel betrayed by them. I mean, this Russia thing is a great example, right? With Adam Schiff and his Schiff Show on steroids now getting exposed for the dramatic film event that it really was. I believe he wanted to be a film producer, so he missed his calling, or an actor or something, right? So he has like Hollywood in his blood, and he's making this stuff up out of thin air, and that's coming back to haunt him. You saw what Tulsi did yesterday. She's taken away security clearances right after left for all of these people that were involved in this Russia thing that was believed to have been generated out of Barack Obama's grand vision, along with all the people around him. So this is a problem, okay? And Adam Schiff could be going down for mortgage fraud, along with this one other lady, okay? I want to get to her in a second because there's a woman that you've probably never heard of, Ms. Cook. I think it's Laura Cook, who's kind of cooked, shall we say, on the Federal Reserve Board. You know that Donald Trump's not too happy with the Fed. He wants lower interest rates. There is an argument. It's an interesting one. We've talked about it at 76 Research. My company, by the way, go to 76 Research, use code word dollar. It's important to be investing right now. Use dollar. It's my gift to you, just $1 a month for the first 2 months. If you don't like it, you can cancel. It goes to $9.95 thereafter. But we've talked a lot about this. I mean, can you live in a world where you have these lower rates and still low inflation? And the short answer is yes. And you can read all about it, again, at 76research.com. I'm going to put it in the show links. But this woman is kind of cooked, right? So Donald Trump is is out for her right now, because apparently, I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is everybody trying to get away with, you know what, when it comes to their mortgages? I mean, why would you do that? So I know that, you know, compound interest, you know, money, it accumulates over time. And if you can save a half a point or whatever she's trying to save, yeah. But I'm sorry, you know, you're on the board of governors for the Federal Reserve. Joe Biden appointed you, Ms. Cook. And now it's coming out that she did what she allegedly did, what Adam Schiff did, and what Letitia James did. And they're finding a whole bunch of them. You know, the whole kit and caboodle is coming forward now. They have like a whole special division just looking into people's mortgage rates. And it's like, what were you guys doing? Like, how does that happen? What world do we live in? Oh, a corrupt one, shall we say. A very, very corrupt one. And it's all coming out. So she's the latest to be targeted. She joins Letitia James and Adam Schiff in that she may have fudged some things in order to try and get a better rate on her mortgage. And you can't do it. You just can't do it. A reminder, if you haven't gone to 76 Research, we're gonna talk about Target coming up, as well as another company that you guys know. The other company would be Cracker Barrel. Did you ever eat there? I love Cracker Barrel. Well, I used to love Cracker Barrel. I don't know if I'm going to love it anymore because they've gone so woke. They're gonna be the next target. Mark my words. 76research.com for investing ideas, for a handle on the economy, etc. I encourage you to do that. Just take a look at some of the success we've had in our recent portfolios. Wow, tech up 84%. One of our tech picks. You've got materials up 55. You get another tech one up 54%. I mean, a lot of good stuff to celebrate right there. But I'll tell you, Target's CEO is out of a gig. This is Brian Cornell. And Brian Cornell thought he was the big cheese going in. He was going to do all these great things at Target because, you know, hey, Pride Month, this, that, and the other. And we're going to have like the rainbow swimsuits, the rainbow tuck-it swimsuits. Yeah, do you guys remember those? You probably don't. I mean, this was like so weird. I was telling my mom, she couldn't believe me. She didn't believe me. And I was like, no, they really had these things. The tuck-it swimsuits, they were swimsuits for men or for boys. They were sort of rainbow styled, pink and yellow and all those pretty colors. And, you know, you could tuck it all in. And Alex Stein, a YouTuber, did a really, really funny thing on this. I've showed you guys this before. Where he's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it really works. You can tuck it, you know, you jump around. This is what they were putting on their sales floor. All right, along with, they had some merchandise that was designed by someone who, I guess, it didn't go by a gender. So we'll just say someone who was known to worship Satan. No joke. And then somehow the rainbow t-shirts for the, you know, and the onesies for the kiddos were all products of this designer. And it's like, whoa, people, Brian, come on. And so, you know, I just kept remembering looking at all these things. I'm looking at a story right now that had come out. Target reports another sales drop. They kept seeing comparable sales falling. And some at Target would say, oh, we're going to blame the economy. And I was like, no. Don't blame the economy. Blame you. Because Walmart was holding up okay. Target wasn't. A friend of mine who actually used to be the chairman of the board there, Jerry Stork, who came on the show and talked about this. And he said, listen, you know, this was not wise. Like, you don't do that with your brand. You're just trashing your brand, right? You have to understand middle America is not going to go for the swimsuits and the rainbow onesies and all that kind of stuff on display. But simultaneously, it wasn't just that. It was that the CEO didn't really kind of get the concept of what Target was. So now they've brought in someone new who allegedly, although I'll tell you, investors are not convinced, wants to bring them back to their roots, which means, remember when we used to call it Target and it seemed like sort of sophisticated? It was like the sophisticated Walmart. They want to try and go back to that. But I got to tell you, they've done so much damage right now. This guy did so much damage to the brand that, you know, I don't know if you recover so easily from that. It's sort of like Bud Light, right? They still haven't recovered over at Bud Light. They're now looking at Sydney Sweeney because they're hoping that she can help them. I don't think she can. I think like the damage has been done and there are people that just aren't going to ever drink it again because they feel betrayed. You can't betray your customer base. You just can't do that. And these marketing geniuses that are so woke and have so many degrees and think they know better than all of us, well, they're finding out that they don't. They definitely don't know. That woman from Harvard, she definitely didn't know better. She didn't want any of those, fratty guys anymore. Those fratty guys told her where she could shove it. No way, no how. They didn't want anything to do with Bud Light after that debacle. You remember Dylan Mulvaney, the whole bit. Don't worry, I'm not going to show the clip. But this guy at Target should have seen the handwriting on the wall. And he couldn't and didn't. And so Target went the way of Bud Light. And there's another company that's about to experience the same. You'd think these people would learn a lesson. I don't know why they don't learn a lesson. I don't know why they continue to do stupid things, but I guess stupid people do stupid things, or people that aren't even necessarily stupid, but people who think that they are smarter. Right? They think they have it all figured out, and they don't want to think about who their customer is and why their customer matters. I think the real problem is they don't respect their customer. That girl who was going on about Bud Light, she had to reinvent the brand because they didn't want those customers anymore. They wanted something different. They wanted the Ivy League kids and I'm going to get in trouble with what I'm going to say, so I'm going to keep it clean and be very, very careful here. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. They wanted a whole different genre. And it's like, don't forget who brought you to the dance, okay? And the same thing's going on at, Cracker Barrel. And what a time to do this. I mean, come on. So they got a new, CEO over there, and she's being heralded by the mainstream media as, the next thing since sliced bread. She got a spot on Good Morning America today. Why? Oh, because they're redoing the Cracker Barrels all around the country. I happen to like Cracker Barrel. It's like, when you're on the highway and you're looking for somewhere to go and it's going to be good food and you're getting good fried chicken and they have like a nice little store and you can buy things in there too. And I like the tablecloths and the whole bit. Anyway, it's kind of like folksy and homey. And well, guess what? They decided to change it up. This woman who came in as CEO, again, I guess, just doesn't seem to understand what went down at Target, nor what went down at Bud Light, nor what's going down in real time at ABC News, where she did this a little appearance because the stock right now is tanking. Like it opened up down 12%. We're going to check the stock price right now, but this thing is having a bit of a setback. And when you see the redo that she's put in place, you're going to know why. I hate it. It's like the woman has literally no taste. Oh, and then there's the whole, inclusive LGBT nonsense. We're going to get into that. But first, I want you to hear her, okay? The new CEO of Cracker Barrel.
Honestly, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive that people like what we're doing. I'll give you another soundbite. I actually happened to be in Orlando last week with all of our managers. We bring them together and every other year. And the number one question that I got asked, Michael, was, how can I get a remodel? When can I get a remodel? How do I get on the list?
Oh, really?
So because the feedback and the buzz is so good, not only from our customers, but from our team members. They want to work in a wonderful restaurant. So we're doing everything for our guests and our team members.
Well, Julie Messino, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you again.
Answering those questions for all the Cracker Barrel fans out there. There's a lot of great changes.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Robin?
Can I get in writing that the peg game is going to stay?
The peg game is staying.
Okay.
So are the rocking chairs, fireplace, vintage decor. It's all there.
All right. Okay, because that would be a deal breaker. That would be a deal breaker.
It's definitely a deal breaker. Did you see the new logo? They're proud of that too. They're more simple Cracker Barrel as opposed to, that old guy sitting there, because we don't want any old guys. Definitely not a white old guy by any stretch of the imagination, right? Because that's no-go territory. And so Cracker Barrel is trying to reinvent itself. And take a look. Okay, so this is the old Cracker Barrel. I love it. Like I've always been like, oh, this is so pretty, and this nostalgia, and this, that, and the other. James Marino, thank you for the generosity, and thank you as well. I think we have another super sticker coming in here. But look at that picture, right? Don't you like that? Oh, Justin M, thank you so much. I thought it was so cute and nice and kind of made you feel like small town America. And guess what they're changing it to? This woman, like I said, has literally no taste. I'd hate to see her apartment. Here we go. I mean, it looks like an upscale Burger King. Right? I mean, what do you think? I mean, it looks like a fancy version of Burger King. And I'm sorry, the Cracker Barrel is kind of a nice place. It's a nice chain. They think now they're decluttered. I'm like, no, now you're not homey. Now you look generic. Now you look like a fast food restaurant. They have 660 plus restaurants that they're trying to remodel like this, all while simultaneously, not just remodel, not just come up with a new logo, but, make sure that everybody knows how woke and accepting and LGBTQ and every other possible affinity group you can imagine, is welcome and accepted and promoted there at Cracker Barrel. So conservatives are kind of taking an issue from this. With this, I should say, it's like they're trying to get rid of the Cracker Barrel culture and instead introduce all these affinity groups. Now, this is good. Okay, so like we know what I don't know. I get confused on this one. Q is, I guess Q stands for queer, and then the plus, I don't know, because like the acronym just goes on and on and on. You got like every letter in the alphabet seemingly in there. And pretty soon they'll come up with new ones. I bet we're going to have more letters. They're just going to make them up, right? Then so they can add to include more people. So they've got the LGBTQ plus, and then they want you to know they have all this, these resource groups at Cracker Barrel for you. So I'm looking on the screen here. If you're watching on YouTube Live or on Rumble or on Spotify, thank you. If you're listening, thank you as well. But AMPT, anybody know what that is? I'd never heard of it. Oh, well, that's Advancing Modern Professionals for Tomorrow. I guess that's fine. But it's all about promoting a community of inclusiveness, inclusive, ambitious, diverse members. I see. Okay. I wonder if I could be part of that. I don't even know. Maybe because I'm a woman. If you're a white guy, forget it. Like you can't be part of the AMPT. I didn't even know what AMPT was. Whatever. Then they've got Be Bold. Be Bold is the mission for Black leaders. The mission of Be Bold is to cultivate and develop Black leaders within the Cracker Barrel organization. I do believe that this is actually illegal, guys. And Donald Trump is actually bringing cases. ABC News is under fire right now. They're being investigated because of their DEI practices, and you got it right out there, out in the open for everybody to see. Oh, I don't know. What's this woman's name? Mazzino. Let me bring it to you. This CEO, you're going to get to know her name. We're going to find it. Mazzino is her last name. She's going to probably take some flack for this. I mean, the stock's already just cratering. Then there is Be Well. Be Well is the benefits department. It helps employees experience, it helps your employee experience by sponsoring health and wellness activities that nurture employees' physical and emotional and financial and intellectual well-being. Because, if you work at Cracker Barrel, we're going to make sure that you feel really, really good all the time. Because you get all these PhDs that suddenly they're waiting tables and they're like, oh, I don't know if I like this one, right? This isn't really working for me. We did this the other day on my shorts feed. There was this girl who had just graduated from the University of California at Berkeley. And she's like, I can't find a job. I don't want to have to work 40 hours a week. I can't do that. Like, what are people expecting? And it's like, well, maybe they're actually expecting, yes, that you actually work. And that your company isn't there giving you handouts non-stop. I'm trying to see if I can find this because I wanted to show it for you guys. It's actually really, really, really funny. And I was dying as I saw this woman. I'm like, this is what society's come to. But of course, because you get Cracker Barrel saying, hey, we need to have this Be Well initiative, right? Be well, be well. Okay, I got it. Here's the Berkeley girl. And she's got a TikTok account because apparently everybody has a TikTok account now. Let's take a look at her. I think this girl can work at Cracker Barrel. What do you guys think? Watch.
Getting crushed by capitalism is like so cringe, but it's like it's happening to me. And like I got a PhD from Berkeley and like I can't get a job to save my life. Like I got a soil biology PhD and like now I'm a tutor and a babysitter and a dog sitter and like part of that is because like I don't want to like move to some random place in the middle of nowhere. But like the other half is like they cut all the funding for science, and like the biotech market is just like absolutely cratered, and like I have long COVID, so it's difficult for me to work like a full-time job, and just like I got on here to rant a little bit, but like, oh my God, like what do we do? I just have to work.
Yeah. What do you know? You have to work. What has happened? Like, how is it that people don't understand the basics? Like, yeah, you got to go to work. I mean, I really question what we've done, right, as a society, because we're raising a generation that doesn't understand that they have responsibilities in this world. You know, I'll just say it, like, and it blows my mind, because it's like they think they're owed something. And I don't think you're owed anything in this life. Like, everything that you are able to accumulate and achieve is because of your own ingenuity, your own work ethic, your own sense of determination. And for whatever reason, you got a lot of people that don't think any of this matters. There was a guy on TikTok the other day who just so passionately said this, and he talked about, I'm going to show it to you. He talked about how what the real privilege is, you know, when you get your rent paid for you, your cell phone paid for you, when you get the food, you know, credit cards that they're giving out. That's what is really privilege, because that's being covered by the rest of society, and it's really not fair. It's just not fair that that's happening, and people need to take more responsibility, more ownership, if you would, for themselves. Because we can't live in a world where everybody else, where I'm responsible, right, for you. And, you know, effectively, we're going to be responsible for the whole world, for goodness sakes. That's what we're dealing with all the people that have come in, 20 some odd million, right, migrants that cross the border. That is not a world in which we're going to succeed long term. And so I think that we're coming to the point where people are demanding accountability, and the accountability is critical. I know I have this somewhere here. We're going to find it for you, because it is fantastic. He just did a dynamite job, and he's spot on. In other words, the real privilege is having somebody else pay for all your stuff. You know, we shouldn't have to pay for everybody else's stuff. Here we go. I got this guy. I'd never heard of him before, He's like Dallas J.W. Wicker, I think is his name. And he says it. I mean, there's some verbiage, shall we say, thrown in there, but we got that out of there, so we can keep it clean for everyone. And he is dynamite. So let's take a look at this guy. This is what privilege is.
So sick and tired of hearing about privilege. Privilege isn't being white, bonehead. Privilege is living in government housing and calling people oppressors while they pay your bills. Get it? I'm done pretending that any of this bull makes sense. You want to talk about privilege? You want to talk about real privilege? Real privilege is wearing $200 sneakers when you haven't worked a day in your life. Privilege is walking around with $300 Beats headphones while you're living on food stamps, while you're on public assistance, and it's paid for by people who wake up and grind every day. Privilege is having the latest smartphone with unlimited data and having zero idea where the bill goes because somebody else is always picking up the tab. Privilege is being able to protest every little thing that offends you without worrying about calling in sick to work because you don't have a job. Privilege is being able to cheat, lie, fail over and over again in life and still get bailed out while people who play by the rules get punished. That's privilege. This isn't about race. This isn't about class. This is about accountability. We've got a culture that rewards victimhood and demonizes work ethic and responsibility. Meanwhile, the people holding everything together for the rest of society, they get taxed into the ground. Their businesses get choked by regulation, and they get personally vilified for speaking up and saying that this is full. You want to talk about privilege? Then start with the people who've never paid the price, but who also scream the loudest. Because they've never had to build anything. They've never had to defend anything. They've never had to carry any real weight. And the reason they get away with it.
Okay, so that's my point. And then, you know, when you have Cracker Barrel catering, I should say, and look, you know, I just don't get it. Like, when did companies suddenly have to take all this on? Not just the LGBT stuff, but like, take a look at this one. Again, all these different affinity groups. It's bonkers. All these little groups in there. I think it's kind of pathetic. And you know what? I'm not the only one who thinks it's pathetic. I'm not the only one. Funny enough, take a look here.
By capital.
Not here, not
So
here.
sick and tired of hearing about.
I'm not the only one that thinks it's pathetic. The market thinks it's pathetic because I'm looking at the stock price right now and it's really underwater. Check this out. Okay. $53 for Cracker Barrel. It's down 9.31%. Because the CEO thinks that the answer to all of this is to make her stores look like some kind of generic Burger King while simultaneously doubling down on all these stupid affinity groups. She just clearly didn't get the memo. So take that, Ms. Bazzino, and run with it. I don't think anybody's interested in your company right about now. Not even like California's Gavin Newsom, okay? California's Gavin Newsom, even he is like, come on, Cracker Barrel, in his new Trump tone. Have you seen this? How he's like totally trying to imitate Donald Trump all the time now? Here we go. What is wrong with Cracker Barrel? Keep your beautiful logo. The new one looks like cheap Velveeta cheese from Walmart, the place for groceries, an old-fashioned term. Fix it ASAP. Woke is dead. Thank you for your attention to this matter. GCN. This is weird, okay? Like, at first I thought it was a joke that Gavin Newsom was just trying to emulate Trump and he was trying to be funny. I thought maybe he was trying to poke at him. But now I think it's actually for real. So all his tweets now are in all caps and they seem to have been run through some kind of ChatGPT system. And now Gavin just tries to sound like Trump. Okay. They say imitation is a form of flattery, but this is going a little too far. I don't get it. J.D. Vance weighed in on this. Gavin Newsom trying to sound like Donald Trump, a very inauthentic, cheap, slick little version of Donald Trump.
The dance question. I mean, look, the autopsy for the Democrats, some free political advice from the President of the United States is stop sounding like crazy people. That really is all it is. I mean, this idea that Gavin Newsom is somehow going to mimic Donald Trump's style, I think that ignores the fundamental genius of President Trump's political success, which is that he's authentic. He just is who he is. You've got to be yourself. You've actually got to talk to people honestly about the issues. I don't think it's that complicated. Don't be a crazy person. Be authentic. If the Democrats did that, they'd do a hell of a lot better. But the thing is, the Democrats really can't help themselves. If you look at the transgender issue, they're still talking about letting men play in women's sports. If you look at the crime issue, they're calling Donald Trump a fascist for taking action that in 9 days has dropped armed robberies by 55%. So part of sounding less crazy is being less crazy. And if the Democrats were less crazy, I think we'd all get along a whole lot better. I'm not trying to pick on California because I am a member of the California bar, so I don't get me here.
But California is pretty bad, right? California, which Gavin Newsom is the governor of, has led the way in this woke stuff. So why is he now trying to say that woke is dead? And why is he actually criticizing Cracker Barrel in a tweet that sounds a lot like Donald Trump? It's very, very, very strange. And this strangeness is not even lost on MSNBC, who called Gavin Newsom out for just trying to be a copycat. It's like, buddy boy, who the heck are you? Why don't you decide that and then run for office instead of just trying to imitate somebody else? I mean, it's embarrassing, right?
Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, have you seen what he's doing online? And say, just take a deep breath. Yep. Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees and they don't know what to do. I have a good idea. Instead of trying to school Donald Trump, talk into the camera about affordability. Talk about making groceries more affordable. talk about what you're going to do for housing. Talk about what you're going to do for energy prices that continue to go up. We heard the congressman yesterday talk about energy prices skyrocketing in New Jersey. Don't try, as I've been saying, Donald Trump's not on the ballot in 26. He's not on the ballot in 28. Why try to drag Muhammad Ali in the ring when you got Chuck Wepner standing right in front of you? And Wepner's a bleeder. He's a bleeder. You want him. So why are you going, I'm going after Donald? No, you're not. You're not running against Donald Trump. Go after Tweedledee or Tweedledum. Chuck Wepner, a bleeder. Go after him. No disrespect to Chuck Wepner.
Yeah, all due respect, of course.
He kind of held in there long with
Inspired Rocky, many people say.
I think
I mean, it's bizarre, and it's so transparent, and it's so obvious, and it's like, wait a second, Gavin, you want to be the heir to Donald Trump? I think JD has that covered. I mean, maybe Marco, a few other names getting flown about there or tossed about, but it's definitely not going to be you. Like, you've got to represent something different. You've got to remake your party, and that's up to you to try and do right now. But you clearly are struggling. You're struggling so badly that you have to actually copy him, and then MSNBC actually has to criticize you for it. I mean, that's your home team. What's happened? Justin, do you have any idea what's happened? I'm looking at some of these messages here. Chat seemed to support my idea earlier. Not sure how to implement it. Oh, something about alert. Oh, Justin's talking mechanics here for the show. We'll get to that in a second, Justin, because you make a good point. We need to sign up or have like some kind of link. I'm actually working on a newsletter. I have a newsletter at 76 Research, but a newsletter specifically for this show so that you guys know every single time I am here, because sometimes the alerts work, sometimes they don't. Do make sure that you hit the bell. If you've just tuned in and you want to subscribe, please subscribe. It's really important. We're trying to get to 1 million, guys. I want you to help me get to 1 million subs. Wouldn't that be amazing here on the Trish Regan Show? So I think it's going to happen. It gets harder for some reason. I'm like, I thought it was going to get easier. I don't know why it's gotten harder, but it's getting harder. So I'm fighting for every viewer we can get here on the Trish Regan Show, and I'm thrilled if you're here. Please do me the favor of subscribing. And Justin M., thank you. I appreciate the sort of mechanics. If you would, we need to work on that and get an email out to you guys or some way to sign up so that you know exactly when I'm here live every single day. But I would just say the Democrat Party is really kind of screwed, excuse my French, and they are seeking ways to reinvent themselves. But the answer is not to just be Trump. I mean, I think there's kind of one and only Trump. I've said from the beginning, he's got that je ne sais quoi that very few people in politics actually have. But it's been done. I mean, Reagan had that, right? I'm Bill Clinton. I'm sorry, we're not necessarily Bill Clinton fans over here, but he had that. He liked people. That's actually really important. I don't think a lot of these people like people that much. Biden did, but he also had a reputation for being a nasty SOB right behind the scenes, and also was up against the reality of his age and whatever decline he was and is going through. So Biden wasn't your answer. Kamala Harris was never your answer. I mean, unless she was looking for a job at Cracker Barrel, right? She was never your answer. The only way she was going to get there is if she was checking all the boxes. And again, unless you're working at Cracker Barrel right now, I just don't see that as a winning solution, whether it's on Wall Street or whether it is in politics. So they've got to come up with someone who's standing up for the working class in a way that Donald Trump has promised and is doing. And if they can do that, I think that they're going to be successful. But that same person, one, not only is representing working class Americans, but also has to have some passion and authenticity. You cannot simply say, I'm going to put my tweet into ChatGPT and do it like Trump would and think that that's going to work, because it won't. People see through that. And frankly, Gavin, it's getting embarrassing, for goodness sakes. I mean, I'm embarrassed for you. I know the guy. I've been to, book parties. He wrote a book, I guess, at one point. And don't forget, when I worked at Bloomberg, everybody wanted to come on Bloomberg from the Democrat Party because they were all looking for Bloomberg money, I'm sure, right? So he was on anytime we needed him. He'd come on the show. And as soon as I went to Fox, forget about it. definitely it's okay. Like, I definitely didn't really want him on either. But he is, he's perhaps talented, but there's not a lot there. And I think in this new world, whether you're watching the Trish Regan show here live, and I so appreciate you doing that, whether you're, watching your politicians, you're looking for something, and there's a similarity in what you're looking for. Whoopsie daisy, you better subscribe. I just hit an upside down subscribe button on the air. You're looking for authenticity so that you feel like you know someone and that they have a set of values that they're true to. And I don't know as Gavin has that, frankly, because I think he wants to be in politics, and he wants to be in politics so badly that he's willing to sacrifice himself however needed, right? Because you don't just suddenly turn into Donald Trump. That's bizarre and embarrassing for you. Again, reminder to subscribe. I love having you all here, and I'm just looking at some of your notes. Justin, I promise you, we're working on that. Actually, one of my producers was suggesting that. So we will try and make that happen sooner rather than later. I appreciate all you guys do, the last Boy Scout wing, and as well. Gifted memberships would be a boost for the channel. I don't know how to do that. I have to find that out. You know who else has mentioned that, by the way, is Dawn. Dawn Backus says that too. So let me do a little due diligence. I would say this is going to keep me young because it's requiring me to learn new things like technology. I mean, think about it. I used to go and I had like a team of a zillion people, and somebody would turn on the microphone and the lights and the cameras, and you had a whole team producing, and my only job was to, I actually wrote everything. I actually wrote everything on my show, which is worth you guys knowing, even the intros. And the only thing I didn't write were the teases, because I just want to give it all away. Like, I'll tell you everything right away. And they're like, no, you got to like craft the tease so that you like hold on to something so that people stay through the commercial. I wasn't very good at that. So I used to outsource that to a very talented producer. And I'd let him take over on that. But on everything else, basically I had a hand obviously in the editorial direction, and I did write all my own intros, which is unique and unusual in the business. I just felt like nobody could really get my tone of voice better than, me, right? But I would say that I had a huge infrastructure around me. And I don't have that now. Like, we've got a couple people, and they're awesome, and we all work really, really hard, but it's a totally different thing. And I joke that it's going to keep me young because I have to keep learning new things, right? The technology is moving so fast. So one of those new things that I have to learn with all of you is, or with my team, is the email thing. So we'll get that. I have it at 76 Research, but it's kind of a different product, a different company. Please do go over there. Do sign up at 76 Research and make sure that you take advantage of some of my financial knowledge, as well as my dear friend Rob's financial knowledge. He's brilliant. I'm not too bad myself, and we seem to know what's going on in these markets. I'll tell you, I told you this would happen with Letitia James. It's not market-oriented, but I told you there was no way that this $500 million thing was ever going to stick. I also told you that MSNBC is going to be up against a whole lot of problems, especially with this spinoff, because Comcast can't get away from that company fast enough. And let's just face it, I'm not sure that everybody on that network is actually writing their own copy, shall we say, or writing their own intros, or could possibly plug in a camera or a light or a microphone or anything else, right? And has probably no interest in staying young in the way I do. So it's a different game, but things are changing, and because they're changing so fast, there's going to be a group of people that kind of get left behind, and I think that's the mainstream media. I know that's the mainstream media. Things can be done much more cheaply, much more authentically, and there's a realness here that you're just not going to get over in those other places. So do me the favor of subscribing, sharing. Let's get to 1 million together, and then, the sky's the limit. Then I think we really get unleashed, right? Thank you for all you guys do. I'm going to see you back here live again tomorrow. It is good to be home. It is so good to be home. We can talk a little bit more about that too. I'm going to put up a bunch of pictures on my Instagram account as well as here on YouTube, so you'll see some of that. And we're live again. Make sure you hit the bell tomorrow.